Yeah.
We are now recording.
All right, ready? Ladies and gentlemen, I'll now call to order our October meeting. And since the last time we met, there's been a lot of things that have happened in our community. First and foremost, obviously want to give a shout out to our town workers. Blackstone was very spared by the storm. It's kind of like Isabel in '03. Blackstone and areas east got hit the hardest, but this one, the west end of Nottoway County, I think they had it worse than we did in Isabel. And I can't say enough about our town workers, town linemen. Just if any that's watching, I want us to give a round of applause for the linemen, all the employees. But also on a somber note, last week we lost former Councilman Sam Moncure unexpectedly. And I think it's appropriate, before we have a moment of silence, I just want to say, as I told Sam, in life, a lot of times you look back and you hope you get to tell people what you think about them while they're alive. And at the last council meeting in June, I went down the line, and what I told Sam, I just want to repeat, and that is, there are times you may not agree with Sam. Sometimes, a lot of times, sometimes you might agree with him, but you always knew where he stood. He was a straight shooter, and he was I've said it before, he, along with the town manager, town staff, and former Councilman Ben Green were very instrumental in the town's I call it a forward pivot, making the turn. Soon after Philip got in office, we had a crisis, and those guys really helped get us through it. So I'd like to observe a moment of silence in loving memory of Sam Moncure. We thank you, and the services are tomorrow at 2 o'clock at Crenshaw United Methodist Church, and there'll be visitation after the service. And this time I recognize Ward A Councilman Nathaniel Miller, who will lead us in the invocation.
Let's bow our heads. Heavenly and merciful Father, as we come upon you today, we want to say thank you, God. Thank you for letting us survive this storm and bless it over us. Dear God, as we come upon you tonight, we ask you not to let triple personalities come upon us. But let's get the problem solved that we're set about to do. These and all blessings we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. We now invite you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, thank everybody for coming tonight. We've got a few items on the agenda that we are going to be doing away with just because of technicalities, people weren't ready, that sort of thing. But the very first thing we have tonight on the agenda, we have a public hearing to vacate a portion of 10th Street. Mr. Norbeck, if you could just go over this rather mundane request, I believe.
It is. There's a portion of 10th Street right at the town limit line, which is adjacent to Warren Dalton, who actually lives in the county, and Sharon Dalton, who is the last resident on 10th Street inside the town limits. The right-of-way is fully within the town's inventory. However, it will not affect, because it's not improved right-of-way, any kind of reimbursements from the state or any of that sort of thing. They only reimburse on improved portions of the right-of-way. Sharon's made a request because I think her complaints have been some loitering down there, people turning around, and she'd like to block it off. We are retaining over 50 feet of right-of-way, which is a standard and certainly enough for us to ever make any improvements. Before you are 3 documents, 2 easements, one from from Warren Dalton to the town, and one from Sharon Dalton to the town, and that gives us easements back for our water meters and that sort of thing. That way we won't have to relocate them and move them back to the property line. And the third document, is an actual deed of vacating that portion of the right-of-way based on the survey that you have in your full package.
Okay. At this time, is anyone here tonight? I'll go into public hearing. Anyone to speak for or against the request? It's been duly advertised. Seeing and hearing none, members of council, I'll close the public hearing. Members of council, what's your pleasure?
I move to approve of the vacation of this portion of 10th Street for both Sharon and Warren Dalton.
Second.
Ms. Thompson is second, and Mr. Nash's motion. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Budget appropriation.
Before we go, there are 2 easements in there. The vacation of the road is correct, but there are 2 easements in there that require the mayor's acceptance, the signature. And if you guys would make a motion authorizing the mayor to formally accept the easement from both of the dogs.
So moved.
I second.
Motion's been moved and second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion also carries 7-0. The second of two public hearings advertised is a budget appropriation, which is sort of a standard procedure we do this time every year.
Jennifer's going to join in, the president.
All right?
To correct me if I'm not going to. As you know, that from years past, the state code does require us to have a public hearing if our expenditures exceed the budget by 1% or more during the course of fiscal year. This is applicable to fiscal year 2018, excuse me, which concluded this past July. And before you is an appropriation that Jennifer prepared with Sheila Minor's assistance, and it is in the amount of $368,064. You can see that there were additional revenues that we have included to offset the expense.
I'm looking at meals tax revenue. We were over budget by $95,000. Hello, Fast C.
We increased that this year, I believe.
We did increase it in this current budget to reflect more accurately, but we've been trending, and as you know, we always revenue low,
That's right.
and we did increase the meals tax.
And obviously, we were over budget on expenditures, so which accounts, I mean, you, just so everybody else will know.
The majority of that, if you look, I think the primary over expenditure would be in the roads, road paving. And we receive our quarterly payments, and we set those aside. And as we get into road paving projects during the course of the year, tar and gravel that was just finished on Luke and Fall Street, we typically have the cash in order to pay for those.
So do we look at this in budget time? Does the budget committee,
I think it's one of the things we're gonna have to. I think you're gonna get a presentation from our auditor discussing specifically our general fund. We're still in the black, but we're not in the black too terribly much. So that is one of the things that we're gonna need to look at is
this
how
should
do
be a
we
guide right here as to.
more better balance that street department with the state money. But we're not deficit spending. We actually have the cash set aside whenever we do these road projects. In fact, Colony just sent us an invoice and we have the cash for that.
I am intrigued by one item. There's an item called Mayor Unemployment Insurance for $1. Were y'all worried about me hitting the street or something, or? Just to balance it, okay. Didn't know they had unemployment insurance on me. Well, it's good to know. Any other, members of the council, this requires a formal motion and a roll call vote. So I'd entertain a motion.
You may want to open the public hearing.
Absolutely. We have to have a public hearing. Does anyone from the audience want to speak, ask questions on, it's something we do every year. This year it's a little bit more significant on the revenue and expenditure side. But again, the thing that caught my eyes, took in $96,000 more meals tax than was budgeted, which means the audit report this year is going to show probably another record year for meals tax in Blackstone. Probably in the mid-sixes.
Higher since I've been here. It's trended higher every year.
Probably almost 700,000. We were 630 last year, or 610.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can tell you exactly what we budgeted for.
We got somebody collecting it now, right?
Yes, sir, quite regularly and aggressively. While the town manager is looking for the number, anyone want to speak for, against, ask a question about the annual resolution?
So I got a question.
Yes.
So you're saying this meals tax right here, you collected $95,000,
Over
right?
and above.
Over what was budgeted.
Over what you budgeted?
And the budgeted amount was like
He's looking at it.
580 or?
Meals tax for this current year, I don't have year previous, budget amount, $575, and that's an increase probably of $50,000 of that 90.
So this is from last
I can
year.
go back and find it.
That's all right.
But year-to-date amount, we budgeted $575, and we're through the end of September, correct me if I'm wrong, that we have collected $167,000.
In just 3 months. So on pace for another record year.
Looks like we're trending in the correct direction.
Very good. I see a question. Yes, Beverly Ames.
Okay, on that $96,000 in the overage for that, has that been taken from this $368,000?
That's being used to balance it, yes.
So in other words, without that, we would have had almost over $450,000?
No, there's a whole list right here of, and Philip may, but there's a whole list of overages that we had this year and extra revenues, and that goes to apply towards street improvements that we went over on.
We collected $368,000 more than we expected to collect based on this appropriation, and that offsets or balances the amount of expenditure, and that's primarily a street paving.
So in other words, are we sitting at zero then, instead of, I'm sorry, I'm confused.
The fiscal year will balance now because we have expenditures in excess of $358,000
At this point.
over the budget. Now, this is last year's
The
budget.
end of June, the budget that ended June 30th of 2018.
Okay.
This is just balancing that budget that we're closing now.
But we still have the money
Oh, yeah.
so theoretically, at this point, there's a zero.
It's all journal entry is
The,
what it
the
is.
budget year 2018 that ended in July 1st
July 1st, right?
is now gonna be a zero. We're gonna be basically expenditures equal revenue.
And you have to do that if you're 1% or more than what your
We're
budget
required
was.
to have a public hearing, excuse me for sitting down, we're required by state code to have a public hearing
Yeah.
if our expenditures exceed 1% of our total budget. And for the past, 5 years, 4 years,
Yeah.
perhaps we've been doing just that. And the majority of the expenditure over and above was in the street payment. Okay?
And then we've now collected, so it's.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And just,
I just wanna make sure.
well, you raised a good point. If you're sitting in the audience, you're probably thinking, my goodness, Blackstone's blowing its budget, but that's
I mean,
just,
we've worked so hard to clear up.
Absolutely.
past stats.
Absolutely.
I don't want us to start digging another hole.
correct. And just while we're on the topic, roughly, not gonna hold you to exact, what, for the benefit of the audience and people watching, what do we have in reserves, generally speaking, today? If you had to just, all right, exact figure coming up. Because about 7 years ago, we had about zero in reserves.
Maybe even less than that.
As of today, you have $2,926,208.
2.9 million.
Almost 3 million.
And how much of that is spoken for, so to speak? Is that undesignated?
That's undesignated.
That's undesignated. Now, one thing that's happening, folks, that a lot of this progress is coming to Blackstone, which is really good. You know, we're going to have some big water customers and sewer customers that will require money on the front end to extend those lines, and that's why we hope that the developments that are coming, A, happen, and B, aren't overdeveloped, where we spend a lot of money on lines and all of a sudden,
They don't happen.
right. And that's, but a great question, very good question. Any other questions? It's a routine thing we do every year, but it is, the dollar amount is a little high this year, no doubt. I will close that public hearing. Members of council, any comments or motions from y'all?
I make a motion that we
Ms. Hasbrook has moved. Is there a second? Mr. Morgan has seconded. Any further discussion? I'll ask for a roll call vote. Is tonight Mr. Nash night or Colonel Tom night? Start with Colonel Wilkinson.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Very good. Next up, you have your minutes from the rather brief September council meeting. We'll try to beat that tonight. Members of council, what's your pleasure?
I move to approve and dispense of the reading from September 17th, 2018.
I second.
Mr. Miller has seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Under visitors, visitor number 1, we were going to postpone that to a later date. That's Sandra Tanner with tourism. Next up, we have the Blackstone Chamber. I see Jane Barnes in the audience. It's Christmas parade time.
They're calling for snow on December 14th.
Oh, my goodness. no. It was a lonely ride, but a fun ride, a magical ride.
Okay, I gave you the letter, and I sent you a letter and all the information, the street closures, so the chamber is requesting, the Banner fee be waived, all the normal street closures, and, any donation that you could provide to the chamber to offset the cost of bands and advertising and just general expenses for the parade.
What did we do last year?
750's been the number, hasn't it? 750 for the last several years. Has that been sufficient? Has that been?
Yes, that's wonderful, that's
I
lovely.
move to approve of all the requests, including the banner permit, the parade, all the approved here, plus the $750 donation from the county.
Mr. Nash is moving. Just for the benefit of the audience, the Christmas parade is Friday, December 14th at 6 o'clock. Same route as the last several years, Sea Park down to Sports Tavern area. We have a motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
And I have a couple of more things. I
Yes.
just want you to know that, that I've taken it to myself to contact Brandon Martin to make sure that we have a tree in the town square and talk with Dan, or text Dan. And as soon as Brandon, he and Brandon will get together and they'll get it up and get it decorated.
Outstanding.
The other thing was, there's a change no, you know, Billy, about the Santa schedule, in the park, okay? I think, my understanding, been told, is that Santa is on Grand Illumination Night, will not be in the park, but will be in downtown, maybe in Citizens Bank. And that way, I guess, the thought is to draw, all that crowd downtown. And so there will be Santa there. Santa will not be in the park on the 14th because he rides the truck at the fire station. So he will be from Saturday, November the 24th, November the 30th, December 1st, 7th, 8th, and 15th will be in the park.
Outstanding. 6 to 8 on those nights, like in the past?
Yes.
Outstanding. That's great. Thank you, Jane. Outstanding. And of course, he's going to be visiting all of our homes on the morning of the 25th. So for those of us who make a good list, we'll see how that goes tonight. All right. And our third visitor, we have Mr. Chris Page regarding the town square, and Walter Mack Osborne will be on deck.
Hello. Hello. Good to see you guys again, third month in a row. I have a few things on my agenda to speak with you about. I'm going to try to make them quick and then a short speech, and then maybe we can tackle the issues as you guys see fit. What we're here for today is after our first karaoke event, we've had a lot of interest in having the finale held in Blackstone and not in Farmville. We've gotten numerous calls, many of them saying that we shouldn't move the event to Farmville. We said that we'd bring it to you guys to see. That event was scheduled for November 10th in Farmville, and what we'd like to do is see if we can hold the event in the town square on November 10th for the finale of our karaoke contest.
What time would that be? Because November 10th, the weather's going to be a little different than it was in September.
Yeah, it looks to be a little nippy right now. They're looking. I'm hoping it's going to be in the 60s, but we don't know. But we can adjust. I mean,
Would it be like daylight, like late afternoon? Because it gets dark then at 5 o'clock.
yeah. So we're going to talk about maybe an hour before dark, and then maybe a couple hours in the dark.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay.
we want to kind of bring the same light show that we had, in the last event, make it look pretty. The second instance is the Rocktoberfest. I know that when we had talked about moving it from Sunday to Saturday, we had talked about possibly needing to have the street closed on Main Street between Citizens Bank and right corner kitchen. We think that's unreasonable to our neighbors. So what we'd like to discuss is if it's possible, if we could close the sidewalks off from that area. And there's a few reasons for that. One, we've invested a lot of money into the event, and we're hoping that it's going to pay off and we can make our money back. But if people can watch the event from across the street on the sidewalk for free, they're not going to buy a ticket to the event. So that's just something to think about, see if it's something we can do. It may be easier to close the sidewalks off so we can have entries, at the end of the sidewalks there. The other two issues are more of a bigger issue. We wanted to talk about fair use of the square for everyone. And then banner fees for private businesses as well, if we can do something about that. And just a short speech, I just wanted to talk to you guys about our karaoke event. Was the highest grossing sales event that we've ever had since we've been open. Even with those sales, we broke even for what it cost to run the event. The karaoke event's unique in its way because it's a 7-week event, so we started making profit the second and third week. However, events like Rocktoberfest is a one-shot deal. You either make it or you break it. The events are expensive. They're an investment by us. We want to create that economic environment for downtown businesses to have people downtown. And we think hosting Good Family Clean Fun, we can do that. We do believe that there are other businesses that receive ill intentional business from the event. I know of a few incidences where they have, so we think the whole community did there. Everybody had a fun time. And these are businesses in Blackstone that have taken advantage of working with us in these events, and they've actually been able to have some, they sponsor us so they get their name out there, they're on the radio, whereas they would never, some of them wouldn't be. For instance, our sponsors are Benchmark Community Bank, O'Reilly Auto Parts, Homefront Sales and Leasing, Sanitary Barbershop for Rocktoberfest. They're on the radio right now, and I don't think that they would be if they hadn't. Body Beautiful Fitness Studio, they did some great dancing for us during the event, and they're also sponsoring us. Southside Transmissions for Rocktoberfest, East Coast Elite Chiropractic, which is a brand-new chiropractor in town, is going to be helping with Rocktoberfest. Friends for Dave Bradford Congress is a sponsor for Rocktoberfest. Homefront Appliances, I give some gifts to give away. They're T-shirts. They have their name on it. On the back, it's advertisements for downtown businesses. The brew house is not on there. It's all other businesses in Blackstone. Those are given away to each contestant that wins, gets eliminated. Outside of town, we brought money in for sponsorship with these events. East End Motor Company from Farmville, Strike Force Tires in Keysville, obviously the Dave Brat. So it's an event where we're trying to get everybody involved, and I think we're doing it the right way. What we hope to do is that we can adopt some fees for private businesses that use the square, but the business needs an opportunity to make its money back, and that's why we sell goods there, such as our food and beer. It costs a lot of money to throw these events and market it. It's not like we can bring Tim McGraw down here and put one radio commercial on there and everybody's downtown.
Right.
We have to spend a lot of money to do them.
Right. Let me just interrupt real quick. You've got October 27th. Your book, that this council's giving you permission for that. I think this council may, and that will certainly go through the committee. I think any new rules that are going to take place for the square, and I think probably some are needed, probably want to do that between now and the first of the year. Because also you're going to get weather. I don't think you're going to be having a lot of events in November, December, from private businesses. And it takes time to do this right. I'll tell you, the karaoke was wonderful. It was wonderful in several regards. We were celebrating local talent. It was free admission. It was I'll be honest with you, I've been to many events in that square. It was one of the nicest nights I can remember downtown, as far as, in the public square. So what's your main request before the council tonight? Because you've already got October 27th. Now,
We got
you
October-
mentioned closing the sidewalks.
Right.
That's interesting. If you're going to, I don't know how that works. I mean,
I think it's a good compromise, though. Instead of the street, we allow traffic to flow, people to park, and businesses aren't too interrupted.
but if I suppose I want to go to the corner kitchen to eat, and I'm allowed to park in that block,
Right.
is
we
someone
will-
going to confront me and say, Mr. Colburn, what are you doing? Where are you going?
No, I mean, we're going to make sure if you're getting inside the event, you're having a ticket, but if
Okay.
you're in the corner kitchen, we're not going to mess with you.
Right.
Also, those, where we put the barricades would be before the crosswalk, so if they were to park behind here, they would be able to walk right to corner kitchen. Okay. Anything coming in those gates, though, they would require a ticket.
Have you been working with the corner kitchen? Because in that block, at that time of night, the only people that are going to be open for business is going to be in the corner kitchen.
Well, I have not reached out to him myself.
Okay.
We are trying to keep them into consideration. We'll be willing to work with them and talk to them between
Right.
now and then and come up with any ideas that they have.
Sure.
We don't want to close off their parking in the alley.
Right.
So their employees can park, and we don't want to stop their flow of business either. The last time I talked to him, he was at the brew house for a karaoke event and just told us that we were rocking it, and we ran out of some ice, and he brought some over. So
That's good. That's good.
we have no ill will towards anybody.
No, I know.
We want everybody to do, good business in Blackstone and bring investment.
As long as, I can tell you right now, every council I've ever served with, when they hear merchants cooperating, it's a wonderful thing. But I want to make sure, we've got a big meeting tonight. Your request tonight of this council for October 27th is to work with the police chief, town staff on closing the sidewalks to make.
Right, we can close the sidewalks. I can have my staff there. If you want police there, we could do that. I mean, we're gonna have off-duty officer on duty, just like the last event. But we can have our staff there, collecting tickets, people coming in. But we also are gonna be smart about it and realize who's going to corner kitchen and who's going into the event.
Right.
The other request, it would be the sidewalks instead of the street. And then the other request would be to do the finale of the karaoke in the town square, so we don't have to take that business to Farmville.
On November the 10th?
On November 10th, we got hundreds of calls about it. I've even seen some comments on Facebook on like some of the DBI stuff about it, starting in Blackstone and finishing in Blackstone. We figured we'd give the town the opportunity to do it.
Let's take one thing first. Members of council, what are your initial thoughts on his request about the October 27th closing the sidewalks? Any concerns that y'all? I'm still trying to
You
visualize.
brought up a good concern with the business on the corner.
Yeah.
I mean, you're having an event outside, so you're gonna draw people anyway, whether they're watching you from across the street or on your side of the street. If they wanna come in, they'll pay the money to get in. If they don't, they'll look for a minute and they'll walk on, so I don't see any need to close the sidewalk for that. That could be a safety concern as well.
Yeah, I worry, but if you're not going to close the street and you're going to have this somehow encumbrance on the sidewalk, to me, if I were you, of course, I haven't done what you do, and you do it well, you did a great job DJing, I'd just have somebody sitting there at the main gate saying, if you want to come to Rocktoberfest, pay up. You're worried about freeloaders hanging out on the sidewalks, watching the show, like basically the equivalent of lawn chairs at an amphitheater.
Right, it's just the way that that square is particularly set up.
Right.
Collecting tickets, at the front would seem optimal, but like I
Right.
said, people could watch the show from across the street. Now, are you gonna get 500 people doing that? Probably not. But we also don't want, you got the Beer and Wine Festival the same day, you got that, we're expecting a lot of people. I just didn't, we didn't want to really push you guys on the street closure, because we thought, well, maybe that was a little bit too much for our folks around us, even though it is evening time. We were trying to figure out a way, maybe if we brought those barricades and just close it on the sidewalk from the end of Quarter Kitchen where the square begins, down to the other end where the square ends.
Right.
Maybe that would be
I don't
reasonable.
really see.
It's hard,
I don't really see anybody coming just to sit on the sidewalk to
Because
watch.
here's the good news. I'm gonna just tell y'all, I'm a child of the '80s. If they're coming to watch the Motley Crue cover band, they're gonna want to be in those gates where the beverages are. I'm just
And
saying.
a ticket does include a brew, so
So I've
I'm
been
sure that
told.
will be fine.
I just look at it as I support the events and the use of the square, and I think it would be easier to convince everybody else if we ask for less.
Exactly.
Not worry about the sidewalk, leave it open as usual.
Okay, well, let's do that. Leave it open. But can we finish the karaoke event in the square?
That's item number 2. The kickoff is great on September 22nd. The only thing that comes up to my mind, and I'll let council weigh in, the very next day is Veterans Day, and there is an event in the square, and there are going to be some exhibits in the town square that next Sunday morning. Right, so we may have to make sure clean up prompt and swift.
I would like to touch on that. If you went outside into the town square about an hour and a half after that karaoke event, it looked like there was no, from what I was told from people, when I looked at it, it looked like there wasn't even an event there.
Okay.
The only thing left behind were the porta potties, which couldn't be picked up till Monday.
Understand?
So if that's not gonna be an issue.
What say you members of council on the karaoke stand-in blacks and the karaoke finale on November the 10th? We won't have a meeting between now and then. We may have a special meeting between now and then, but you need to know.
I make a motion that we approve it.
Ms. Ms. Thompson has moved. Mrs. Jones is second.
And we'll discuss closer to the year with obviously fair use and talking about fees for rental fees and stuff for the square.
Exactly. I know y'all didn't want to get in that tonight, but I did send a
I got a
proposal.
question.
Mr. Miller has a point.
I got a point. By me being a veteran, and this thing that Malcolm is supposed to be, my only concern is, if you have it there the 10th, my only concern would be that it have to be respectable for us veterans.
Mr. Miller, I'll have it beautiful for you. It'll look like it
my
never
only
even
concern.
happened. You'll just have 2 porta potties out there.
They're on the side of the building.
That may come in
They're
handy.
on the side of the building.
That's
yes.
my only concern.
We had a large cleanup crew for the last event. We had a large cleanup crew, and we ended up doing the event inside afterwards. So we moved
heard.
everything, tore it down, and got it all cleaned up.
Give this council some ballpark hours that we're talking about after daylight saving time. We spring forward. We actually fall back that very night. You fall back that night.
That night, so
Yes.
it would get dark at what time?
Well, it will get dark around 6.
All right, I was told to get approval for use. If we're gonna get dark around 6, I'm thinking 4 to 8, 4 to 7, 4 to 8, but I can get back to you on time.
That sounds
Somewhere
reasonable.
around that time, something reasonable.
I'd say just for leeway, 4 to 9 o'clock.
4 to 9.
And-
4 to 9 for leeway.
Because
And-
technically, that will be actually 8 o'clock if you go
Right.
with
Right.
the new time that will come in that night. So
Right.
say 4 to 9.
4 to 9, and include that in you include that in your motion?
Sure. Vote on that.
All right, let's have a vote on this motion. The motion been made and duly seconded to approve the karaoke finale for Saturday, November 10th, 4 to 9 p.m. with absolute prompt and thorough cleanup before sunrise on Sunday, November 11th. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries
With the
7-0.
understanding though, when we get this new policy, it's gonna start incurring
And
fees.
Absolutely. So, and we don't have a problem with that. Like I said, I sent over a proposal. I looked
Yeah.
at what other cities were doing. I also think that while we tackle that issue, if we could help be a part of that, that'd be great.
Certainly.
And then also the banner, the way the ordinance is written right now is that banners can only be done by nonprofit organizations. And, we're looking for economic conditions. If I'm gonna invest $5,000 in an event, I'd like to be able to market it the same as anybody else. I'd be willing to pay double a banner fee. I know right now people are paying
You
$75.
may be held to that. You're promising a lot tonight. We got good memory.
Advertisement over.
I think that we should have an opportunity to be able to advertise it like other events so that we can have at least a chance of being successful, you know.
I'm gonna make one quick point and want to move on. That's certainly a great idea that would be considered. The town code right now stipulates there's no advertising allowed on town property, and the council has made an exception for the DBI concerts that used to be held. It will be something the council will have to consider, possibly amending the code. And that's fine, it can be done, I just want to throw that out there.
Well, in my proposal, it would be approved per permit. So the permit would
You'd
be
have to come
filled
before the
out.
council every time, right?
Every time,
Right,
that's
right.
correct. And
Because
then-
here's just something you gotta be careful about. Everything you're talking about, everything you've done so far has been so good, but when you open up the right to advertise, that means if somebody comes in, wants to pay their fee and willing to pay, and wants to say, re-elect Trump 2020, or whatever, I hate Blackstone. I know that sounds crazy, but the city of Lynchburg's been tested and gone to court because somebody wanted to put pro-religious stuff on a bus. You just gotta be careful.
Well,
There's some
it
First
also-
Amendment issues there.
Also, I mean, to be honest, even the 150, if he doubled the fee, I mean, you've got, obviously, advertising
Yeah.
fees. That's cheap for over Main Street.
Oh.
So I think it needs to be comparable to what going rates are.
11,000 vehicles a day. It's a prime spot.
I mean, I'm not trying to deter, but it would
No.
need to be.
Right, I also think that we also want to make it affordable for people who are wanting to invest in
Correct.
downtown as well, so.
Right. You just gotta remember, whenever something appears, if I have a banner in my front yard that says, whether it says Bud Light, Pepsi, or a candidate, people assume, well, Billy Colburn, that's his property, he's endorsing that. And you just gotta be careful. I know it sounds a little what if, but in local government, one thing I've learned, you gotta think about the what if.
Right.
We've gotta move on. Chris, thank you for everything. Yes, Colonel
But on
Tom,
that same note,
Yes, yes.
if the council approves his event, we are endorsing it.
it's in the square.
So
It is.
I would say if it's an event that's been approved, then we ought to entertain banners.
Sure.
Yeah. You know, I'm not from here. I've lived a lot of places in this country, and these types of things is as normal as the air that we breathe. So, I mean,
Yeah.
for us to be having opposition or debate, it's really weird to me.
Well,
It's small town.
it's small town. We were the last town in South Central Virginia to get an ABC store. Everybody in Blackstone was against the ABC store when they drove and stuck away to Cambridge and McKinney and bought their liquor and was like, hell, Blackstone's not gonna have ABC. So it's a unique situation. Gotta move on with the agenda.
you.
Mr. Raymond Mitchell wanna make a point real quick.
I was asking, did he mention something about bringing somebody else along in there and make some money off of the event? You mentioned that, something similar to that?
He was mentioning the brew house is getting commercial sponsors to help them pay for the event, and in exchange, they get exposure at the event, and maybe at the banner.
Through here, is what I'm saying. That's coming through- He's clearing that through here. He's getting permission from town, how does that?
He's got permission for October 27th to have his concert, and he's got permission to have the karaoke event on November 10th. He's talking about changing the banner policy. That would be something, and having a rental fee for the square in the future for businesses. That's something the committee will have to look at.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yes, sir.
We cover through, he's got that permission from town.
Correct. All right, thank you, Chris. Walter McOsmond, you're next.
My email got lost, it went to you.
Okay, I wish I didn't bring my copy.
Well, remember, I had sent you a request for the Armory.
Right.
To the Blacksville Recreation Association wants to use the Armory for BRA basketball practice starting, I think, in December. I was hoping that Ms. Hausman would be here tonight, but I think with school being out and
Right.
band being everything, I think she's gotten her schedule off. She was supposed to be here tonight also. We've been working hard on the building. We've actually got the restrooms repaired and all the water working in the restrooms for the first time probably in 10 years. And we've got some volunteers going to come in, we hope in the next month, and do certified abatement of the lead in the bathroom so they can be used. And if they're not used, we would need a porta potty for this.
Okay.
But it's my understanding that the town pays $75 for a porta potty per day or per month. It makes no difference. So once you get that porta potty, it's $75, which I had no idea until I asked the town how much they've been paying for the one for the cruise in, which
Right.
we're going to take care of that next year too. But the BRA found out that they needed a place to. We don't have enough. There's not enough basketball practice space in town of Blackstone for the kids.
That's
basically.
correct.
And the BRA said they would be glad to put up the goals that used to be there, and the Armory Group would like to sponsor also doing that. and between the BRA volunteers and the Armory volunteers man the building. So it's actually no cost to the town at all, but being it's a town building, using it for sports, we felt it was correct to come ask the town, of course, permission to do above what we normally do over there.
You talk about the, like, months of December, January, February, during the, in
I
conjunction
believe
with the
it's only
basketball season?
December. Mayor, it's been so long since my boy has played ball, I don't remember. I asked her about heat. She said she wasn't worried about heat. The kids would be warm playing.
True.
And we're working on trying to take care of the water in the restrooms and make sure they don't freeze. But we think we could at least give the kids something out the weather this winter. And if it works, we'd like to maybe even expand it with some volunteers to maybe to the kids in the neighborhood or something like that, doing volleyball or maybe or something like that in the building, just to help the kids get them off the street on Friday or Saturday night.
Okay. So you're asking, you as the Armory Authority person in conjunction with the BYRA are seeking town council permission to use the Armory for youth basketball practice on weeknights, December, January, and February.
That sounds great. Yes,
Okay.
sir. That sounds perfect.
Members
Yes,
of
sir.
council,
Yes, sir. That's it.
Members of council, any concerns or questions? Anyone over here with any?
It's a town building that sits there, so let's use it. I move to approve.
Mr. Nash has moved to approve the request.
Second.
Mr. Colonel Thomas seconded. Mr. Norbeck, we okay?
I know the heat, we talked a little
Yeah,
bit.
we talked about
about
that. I
We've
think
got
we're okay.
insurance in it already,
So
so.
figure out what we gotta, if anything, to do. But that radiant heat hadn't been inspected. I mean,
No, we're not even gonna try to use that. I did find out I have a heating contractor for Richmond wants to come and look at the old system and maybe do some, free work for us. So, we found a local volunteer from town that's got some good connections in the city that wants to help us out. So, again, citizens helping other citizens in town, which is all about trying not to cost the town any money to get her up off her feet and get her usable a little bit anyway.
I will say, I'll tell you right now, as a youth basketball coach, I walked in that floor for the Arts and Crafts Festival, and it's probably the best basketball floor in the county right now. It is better than Blackstone Primary, which is fine, but it's got good traction on there.
I was so busy Friday with the tropical storm that I forgot to go check on the building. I remembered it had leaks. As everybody's heard, the building has terrible leaks. So I
Right.
went over there Sunday, I found one spot of water this big on the whole basketball floor.
Wow.
The whole building, after six and a quarter inches of rain.
It's impressive.
So the old girl's not as bad as she leaks as bad as everybody thought she does.
Motion's been made and second. Any questions or concerns?
I didn't say
It's
that.
been made and second. All
Leak, I'm sorry about that.
in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, 7-0. Thank you, Walter Mack.
Let the record show old men leak too, okay? Let me just say that too, okay? All right. Thank you.
All right, at this time, there'll be a second opportunity at the end of the meeting. Anyone else tonight would like to speak during the first visitor portion of the agenda? See,
Saying that the town, the police picnics, look all the town council come and the police picnics. I know Eric Nash been there every time, Mr. Miller. The rest of you work for the town also, so I want to see at these picnics.
I think we're doing well.
I said everybody did.
Tomorrow, it's from 5 to 7 at, beside Circle Sales.
It's like tomorrow's.
No, tomorrow.
Wednesday.
I'm ready to say, because I have to go to
All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. At this time, we have a fire chief's report, but I haven't seen the fire chief. There he is.
Where's your glasses, 50 years?
I know. Chief, tell me what's up.
All right, good evening.
Good evening.
The big things that went on, we did the evacuation drill at Heritage Hall. I think we evacuated 50 members or residents of Heritage Hall. It was definitely a learning experience. That is like 1/3 of their population, and it really tasked us. We did it with the assistance of Fort Pickett. No other agencies came to join us. It's definitely going to be all hands on deck if something does happen. We're going to do this on an annual basis. I don't think that we're going to be able to do this without the town's involvement for transportation, buses, places to put people. But this is definitely a work in progress, but it certainly was an eye-opener. The drill was a tornado that knocked down trees on the old medical center side into the building. So it was definitely something that could be realistic for us, as we all quickly found out. We had our annual house. It was a great success. From what I hear, I was not able to be in attendance, but once again, Zach did a wonderful job getting other agencies involved. Farmville Fire Department donated their fire prop for a vehicle fire for us to use. It didn't work, but we modified it and made it work for the time being as a for the show. We're doing a truck or treat on Halloween. Once again, we just decorate the ladder truck up and give candy to kids. Christmas dinner is going to be December 8th this year, our annual Christmas banquet. You'll be receiving formal invitations for that. Need to approve our new officer slate. We've had a significant change in our officers this year. It's going to be a interesting year, and for us, you know, we got to get some people that have never been an officer and prime them up, and they've already jumped into their roles, but certainly it doesn't take time. You don't walk through the door and ready to take over full force, so.
Right on.
But
You want approval for that?
yes, per town code, I need it.
Move to approve of the 18-19 slate.
1819.
Second.
Ms. Jones is second and Mr. Nash's motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
The last note that I had in there is probably one that's going to ruffle feathers, but we really need to plan. I have a feeling if Blackstone continues to progress as it is, we're not going to be able to manage with a volunteer fire department. We're going to need assistance with career staff during daylight hours. It's just something that's not going to work. With that, I think it becomes probability that a business that comes in and puts a multi-million-dollar building up should have some responsibility to ensure fire services are provided to that building, such as a fire use tax. There's certain taxes that are based on fire flow. So if you build a square footage and you need this much fire flow to put out a fire, this is the tax that you pay on that. I know not in budget year yet, but it's something that I strongly suggest you look at. If we're putting 5-story hotels up and we need to get a new ladder truck, we're not going to make it happen with our current tax revenue. So just wanted to drop the bug in the ear. I did approach the county on doing, they could do fire district tax for anybody that's in a district. They could do a penny tax, a 2-penny tax, but they did not progress on that. That would have helped all emergency services throughout the county to increase our, I want to say we get $45,000 a year, $35,000 a year from them now for apparatus. And, you know, when you're looking at a $600,000 fire truck, $35,000 doesn't go very far.
I like the idea of lessening the burden, or not burdening the citizens so much, but those that make new investments in Blackstone that are paying the big dollars, their pockets are deeper, they can afford it. So if there's a way, I'm sure Philip can figure out a way that we could possibly venture that way just to.
Special tax districts are going to be created. I think the state's giving them plenty of tools to use.
Because, I mean, if we do have a 5-story building, I mean, yeah, the engines and ladder truck and all that down there is not going to suffice. So we've got to look forward
And I wish, you know, our billing would cover it, but we were averaging $13,000 to $20,000 a year off of fire recovery billing.
Right.
It's
better
not,
than nothing.
It's certainly better than what we had, but it's, you know, certainly not going to put a employee in the building.
Chief, I commend you, and you've always been a forward-thinking chief. As this discussion moves forward, it'd be nice to have some examples of maybe some Virginia localities, bigger, smaller, same size as us, just to get a feel. You know, it doesn't mean if we're the only one, doesn't mean make it wrong or right. I just like to have a menu of options, see what's out there. Because one bit, you know, just playing devil's advocate, if someone's going to build a $15 million hotel, one can make the argument the personal property tax you're going to gain from that, you know, he or she's already contributing to the economy, but like you say, it's going to probably increase fire calls. You're going to have more EMS calls out there, patient in room 217 with chest pains or lightheaded, or, you know, more heartbeats create more calls. It's just a fact.
And how do we deal with growth is something we look in our strategic planning for the future.
Right on.
It's gonna be the police department as well.
Oh, I know. If the council does end up having to or choosing to annex or boundary adjust, anytime someone locks the keys out of the car at the hotel, at the Nottoway Red Roof Inn or whatever they're gonna call it, it's gonna be calling, that's gonna be the Hilton. We know it's gonna be the Hilton. I mean, we know. I'm sorry. Chief, thank you. Any questions of our chief? It takes a lot of courage to say the tax word, but I commend you for being forward thinking.
We also will be having some of our members attending the line of duty death funeral for the Henrico firefighter that was killed on 295. And we found out word today that David Creasy
Yes.
passed away. David was in the fire service for over 50 years, taught a lot of classes here in Nottoway County. He succumbed to cancer. He was a huge advocate of cancer prevention and fire service. And just a interesting note, we have, I believe, 7 to 10 people, members on our organization that have had cancer. So it's certainly something that is mindful to the organization and to the role of a firefighter now. It's definitely stepped up to a higher notice among general. I believe the General Assembly actually increased the types of cancers that will be considered for disability for firefighters because of how frequent it is occurring now. So.
Very good. David Creasy was at the Blackstone Fire Station, I want to say about a year ago, and he did train a bunch of our Blackstone volunteer firemen. Well, do you think some Blackstone folks will be going to his funeral as well? Great,
Yeah.
great. Very good.
That's
Any
it.
other any questions of Chief? Thank you, Chief Tomer.
Thank you.
Outstanding. We'll move along to, I believe it's payment of the bill time. I'm sorry. Yes, Chris Page. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to just make clear to council real quick, we didn't talk about this, I apologize. The event on the 10th for the karaoke finale.
Yes.
Is gonna be ran the same exact way as the last event, so we'll have the insurance, we'll have the porta potties, we'll have the cleanup.
ABC license and all that.
ABC license, will sell alcohol and food.
Yes, yes.
Okay, just wanna make sure we got
Yeah,
clearance for that. Okay, just wanna make sure.
You'll have a hard time getting as good a judges as you have, but good luck.
Well, again, we invite all of you.
I was getting some mocking text messages from the members of council during the competition. I was accused of being too kind, but that's okay.
I just want to make sure we were clear, but I know we didn't discuss it. I just wanna
All
make
right,
sure.
listen, thank you. We'll go to payment of bills, the first batch. Total is $473,181.31. These are checks not yet approved in the back of your packet.
Move to approve.
Is there a second? Colonel Tom has seconded. Any further discussion?
We've got 2 questions.
Yes.
Bon Secours, Richmond, $10,200 for maintenance overpayment. Well, the maintenance was paid on per billing.
Yeah.
It's paid per year, I bill it from May to May, and.
They didn't have much maintenance in the building this year.
Well, no, they had 17,000, and then they paid it once, and then they paid it again, and then we instructed to apply to their utility, and then somebody higher up said, no, they're not allowed to do that, we want the refund. So after a portion of it was already applied to their utility bill, you refunded the rest.
And then Taylor Forbes, a clutch repair for $5,000. It seems,
That's a little high.
I don't know what it's on.
Tractor.
What clutch?
Need to buy a tractor.
Man.
Well, the age of the tractor, they replaced the clutch, and that was about $3,000, and then the pressure of the new clutch and everything did some more damage.
Gotcha.
Led to additional costs.
So what's the value of the tractor?
I'm sorry?
What is the value of it? We're spending that much
It's
money.
like
It's now 5,000.
It's probably about $5,000, maybe.
Bless you. Any other questions from members of council? Good question, Ms. Jones. Hearing none, we've had a motion's been made and duly seconded. I'll have a roll call vote, starting with Colonel Wilkinson.
Aye.
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 Motion carries 7-0. And your next batch of bills, total of $181,887.44. They're broken down by departments. These are bills to be paid. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion, questions?
I looked to them, it was pretty good actually this month.
Very good. Hearing none, I'll ask for a roll call vote, starting with Colonel Wilkinson.
Aye.
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 That motion carries 7-0. We go to, yes, Mr.
I was
Smith.
looking at fuel pumps, see, you can't
You
get
gotta
away
find
too easy. During the storm, there is no generator on our fuel pumps, correct?
There is no generator on the fuel pump, that's correct.
I mean, is there a reason why that was, I would think that would be pretty vital to,
Getting fuel out, but typically we have the power on completely. It hasn't been an issue. I haven't
that
had
we
any
don't
trouble.
need to put
We
in
try
big
to
money.
fill everything up, either trucks or
advance.
vehicles or anything like that, but we don't have a generator on the,
Just was curious.
something to think about in the future, but I do think Dan could hook up a portable if necessary.
Okay.
I think that,
It's small enough to where you,
yeah, I think we could
Gotcha.
hook something up, and I believe that's what Dan would intend, but we've not had enough reason to put a larger pad mount or anything,
Gotcha.
or a generator.
gotcha.
All right, we'll move along to the committee reports, and I believe there are two. We'll start with the Chair, Ms. Hasbrook, on the Buildings, Property, and Cemetery that met September 19th. Madam Chair?
Oh, excuse me, I didn't hear you, I apologize, I was waiting on you. The committee met with several items, and a significant number of these are housekeeping items that were carried over. First of which, if you remember, Daphne Cole made a presentation about installing dog waste containment systems, basically baggies for dog waste, and I think there was some interest in the Coles providing some of the equipment and the materials for getting started, and the committee's recommendation was to pursue that with the Coles and see if they would still provide the equipment and materials to get started. And I think it will require the town to do the maintenance, to clean it, empty the bags, all those kind of things.
Have we reached out to them to see if they're still willing?
I have not,
You're waiting to see if we approve them.
if you guys want to move forward as
I move to
recommended.
approve, to reach out to the Coles if they're willing to still provide, I think it was 2 dog containment waste. Well, whatever the Coles will provide.
Yeah, I think one was at Sea Park maybe, and then another one was.
Park, Swords Tavern, and,
Near the ballpark, wasn't it?
yeah, the ballpark.
So
Mr.
my
Nash
motion
has
is just to reach out to them and see if they will still provide, and
If you guys
so
are
we will proceed.
So inclined.
Mr. Nash has moved to reach out to see if we want to move forward. Is there a second?
Second.
Jones, a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
The next two items, capital improvement plan, I don't think we have anything specific to present, but I did present to the committee that in this coming year's budget, and in the capital improvement plan, which is underway right now, we are going to consider moving our equipment shop, or our equipment shed that's behind the bus shop. I think our beautification committee has noticed that it isn't probably the nicest looking thing over there on Church Street, and we're probably the the reason why some of those complaints come in, and indeed, it doesn't look great, a bunch of old VDOT equipment and track hose and such things. So it'd be our intention to start looking at, through the Building and Grounds Committee, moving that up to the bus shop and over on Babs Lane, and getting that consolidated, those properties that we have that we can sell. I'm not advocating a new fuel pump at this time, that's a big expense. I'm
Right.
advocating more of like a metal building and, places to park the bucket trucks out of the rain and all that kind of stuff. So that'll be coming up as a project over the next year or two, and trying to figure out how to pay for that, how much it's gonna cost, all the above.
All of that land back behind what used to be Flower and Foliage of Virginia, I believe, behind the old floors, that the town uses to park their garbage trucks. I mean, could that ever be surplus and sold?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I had a very nice conversation with Mr. McCormick about the utility of the water tank that's down there, and what he could do to incorporate that with what he's doing. Tearing it down is going to be prohibitive. It's going to be really expensive to tear down, and we don't want it to just sit there and decay further and further as we abandon it. So maybe it can be repurposed or reused. But as far as the salt sheds and all, yeah, I mean, the same situation. Maybe somebody could buy that and put some residences
Put it
there
back on
or
tax
something
rolls.
else. Okay. Moving forward. Park Aware, the matter was tabled by the committee. downtown parking, we looked at two different options, one of which was a proposal from an individual that owned a piece of property adjacent to the Happy Cafe. The gentleman's name is Lawrence Moore. He made a proposal to the town, I think a copy of which may be included in your packet, and it's not included, excuse me. We'll get a copy of to anybody that would like to look at it. He offered to sell to the town that vacant lot where Mr. Breedlove used to have his Army Navy store, if you guys remember that.
Oh, yeah.
Vacant lot. So for parking specifically, I think the committee looked at that, and we looked at the second option. We've been in contact with Norfolk Southern about leasing additional properties parallel to the railroad tracks, and they are agreeable. There's an email in here
Right.
that is included in a
Surprising.
diagram that they would be interested under certain conditions, and one of the conditions is there enough room to maintain 20 feet from the center of the nearest track and still get some parking in there. Eric and I went out there and measured. I think we're going to be okay on that. So I would like to continue to pursue that. Obviously, there'll be an agreement or a lease that's provided by the railroad, and then we'll look at some potential improvements that we make over there for parking. Certainly, the loading dock would have to be taken out, so there'd be some role for the town to play in getting that out of there.
I got a question. I've lived here my whole life, but I have been here since 2008, and I have never seen that parking lot, and Bevel's parking lot all full at any given time. So why are we saying we need more parking?
That was my question.
Yeah, the reason it came up is we struggled last spring with a couple planning commission requests for apartments. And as we see more apartments coming in, fewer people can provide the parking spaces that our code requires for residential development on, specifically on the second floor of buildings downtown. That was the impetus of even having the discussion.
And obviously, if any of them are full, it's this one due to the bank and.
This one stays full during the day. At night, obviously, there's room back there.
But you know he's gonna put a motel over there too.
What motel?
Would it be outside of, I don't know, Billy accuses me of always looking at ways of making money, but
No.
if some, say I own Nash Insurance up here and I have
Mm-hmm.
wanted apartments above it, I don't have any room for parking, could I lease a
Well,
spot from
there
the
would
town
have to
of
be some
Blackstone?
kind of trade, like a chit or a credit or something that you could apply so many spaces or a cost associated,
And it's not
something
that
with
I'm
it.
gonna buy that and I can only park there, it's to help keep that lot really is what it is.
There are other buildings. If you, Tim Bauer is a good example, but he's got a good back parking lot, so he's probably in pretty
The
good shape
Moody's
over
that we
there.
just recently did.
They
don't-
could not provide a
don't have
parking
parking.
space.
Right.
Our ordinance is for the new guys. Our ordinance requires a conditional use permit be issued in the BG, which encompasses downtown Blackstone and the Business General District, that they provide a certain number of parking spaces per activity, okay? And specifically for residential, it requires 2 cars or
Off-street parking.
off-street parking
Off-street, yeah.
that have to be provided for each unit. We ran into the
How
issue.
far away that has to be?
Pardon? It doesn't specify how far, you just gotta be able to.
Correct.
That's why I
Okay.
said pay into it.
Now, you just did down with Pearl's
Yeah, the old
old
Pearl
Chinese
Shop.
place.
That's right.
Now, has he got adequate parking?
He's got 2 spaces in the back. If you look, they're a little shaky
Tight.
back there,
It's
but
tight,
he
but he-
squeezed them in
He
there.
achieved what was required. He did achieve what was
You see where he
required.
paved next to the building and on the back, poured that apron? And tell you the truth, I've not seen anybody park there. One of our police officers lives in the building, but and he may park at the police department, but he made a valiant effort to provide 2 parking spaces back there.
Yeah.
Whereas
But Kim and
Moody-
Andrew couldn't have physically do it on site. They just
The
wasn't
4
there.
corners of the building are the 4 corners of the property. That's what got this discussion started, is in the event we start, and we can lease the property and not develop it, but at the point when we want to create a credit system or a trading system, if people want to develop downtown, which is
It's happening. That's the
something that
trend. The
people
trend is
wanna
going to
do,
increase. Yep.
then we would have a place where those people, like Tommy Watkins, who has a building that he could put apartments upstairs on his building, and he came to me and said, well, what would I do? That would be one of the solutions that we could use an additional parking spot.
I will tell you one thing I have noticed, that when the parking lot behind the police station, for years, that thing rarely was used. But because my office is right across from it, that is getting increasingly utilized during the day, which is a good thing. It means more people are coming downtown. But I look back when I was a kid, that lot didn't exist. This lot back here didn't exist. But of course, Americans had less cars. The whole family had 1 car. Now every member of the family has a car, or at least 1 or 2. So that's, but I think, Tom, you made a great point. we have a parking problem when you drive and you're trying to parallel park. It's like, well, we've got a parking problem. But if you really analyze it, sometimes it's not as
The
bad.
problem is people don't wanna walk.
Right.
I mean,
This
people
is
parking on
intended-
Main Street because they don't wanna walk 50
Right.
more feet.
This is
Come on.
intended to not solve a problem, but provide folks that may want to do residential upstairs with opportunity.
It's being proactive. I think it's good to be thinking, always thinking ahead, though.
It still could end up being 400, 500, 600 feet away from where they live.
Certainly could.
Right.
So what's the difference? You can
It's
park
not.
here, you can park there.
When you go to the shopping center,
can't see
the
it.
shopping center, which is more convenient, quote unquote, you walk 3 or 4 times more. But you can visually see the store. That's the psychological thing. When you see where you're going, that's how they make it convenient. Let's move along. But that's good.
I'll bring you a
Yes.
document whenever it's prepared and we'll
Yes.
have that discussion
Yes.
again. The rules and regulations of this town square, we talked a bit about that. And I think that there will be a committee meeting again after the comments that Chris made this evening and perhaps even the banner request and have those referred back to the committee.
Let me interrupt one thing I hate to do. I know we've got a lot still to do. Does this council wish to, at this time, I know that the person that proposed buying the square withdrew the offer, and there was some angst and understandable concern at DBI and elsewhere about the, does council wish to make a statement tonight or at the next meeting about the square is not for sale?
I do think Zach has a grant that may be
Yeah.
still pending.
Right.
He asked me what to do, and I said, well, I don't sense that the council's ready to sell this thing, but if you want 100% certainty, tonight's the night, yeah.
Hate to throw a heavy topic out there, but like I said, Zach, when Richmond got a $5,000 grant, and, I think that, it's hard to say never.
I'd
So,
like to make a motion that we keep this property for green space.
A second motion.
all right, motion's been made and duly seconded to keep this property, it's
As
not,
is.
to remove it from the market, for the listing. Okay? And Mr. Norbeck, just for, if in the future, suppose somebody came and said, hey, council, I want to pay $5 million for the square, some of this council could reconsider at that time.
Yes.
Right, but you want to go on record affirming your motion is clear. Any further discussion? Just, because we have, right, no news here, but we have had a tendency in the past, not this council, to make motions and then the next month they get rescinded, so.
If someone pays $5 million, we'll reimburse DBI
Please.
for $5,000.
Any further discussion? Ms. Hasbrook's motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Got a 7-0 vote, Zach.
We'll move forward tomorrow.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Hasbrook, good motion. Moving along, Mr. Norbeck on Bon Secours.
The lease, if anybody didn't know who hadn't participated in the committees or doesn't remember or is new on council, the Bon Secours lease already calls for renewal. So there's really nothing to be done. They've, in writing, notified us that there is their intention to exercise. They've finished 10 years. They want to exercise the first of 2 5-year lease agreements or leases that they're entitled to if both parties agree. So they've sent that to us in letter in compliance with the lease, and so it's our expectation that we would continue. But of course, the monthly payment, as our mortgage payment is eliminated at the end of April of 2019, their payments drop dramatically too. Okay.
What's it gonna be a month? Right now they're paying
$1,900 is what we'll.
$1,900 a month?
From 22,000.
Plus all the maintenance fees
I
still.
gotta still do the maintenance.
So we're gonna clear probably 24,000 a year.
Yeah, because the building will be paid off.
Okay, that's good.
All right.
When will we have
And
to
we're
sign
still-
that, when
and
do we have to
there's still
sign
a
that?
Service in Blackstone is the.
There's no
Right.
need to sign it. The lease is the
Okay.
original lease,
But
and
the-
all we have to do is
Agree on the
we
price.
notified them in writing that we're in receipt, but they've notified us in writing and to the correct location, so they've complied with the obligations to exercise their first of 2 5-year.
I would love to see.
So where
an
does this
urgent
money
care
go?
of that.
Pardon?
Where does this money go that y'all give for?
Well, right now, we get about $22,000 a month, and that's almost the equivalent of our mortgage payment, $22,000. Basically, we don't make any money on the building.
So now that it's paid for, where is this money gonna go
It
to?
will be paid for in April, but the payment drops from $22,000 a month to $1,900 a month. We haven't established a place for that money or a use for that money. Obviously, we want to make sure that we've got some maintenance funds if we need to do some things that may not. But
In the grand scheme,
$2,000 a month.
yeah, in the grand scheme of it, 24,000 a year is, will be very, yeah.
We went into debt for that project, but we were made whole by Bon Secours, and the contingent of getting the grant back in 07, 08 was that for 20 years, the town of Blackstone would own that building, to be used for a medical facility. And we're halfway there.
If they choose to stay, they're entitled to stay the full 20 years.
Right.
Okay? Original 10-year period, and that's how long our mortgage was. It was from 2009 to 2019. The last payment, I believe it's the 1st of May or right at the end of April. Okay? And then by lease, their payment will drop off dramatically.
I would like to, before we sign that lease, and I don't want to try to strong arm anybody, but I think we need to have another sit down with Bond Secure, because Farmville has got this, they're going to fix to go 24/7 at that basically that walk-in family practice center up there that Centra owns. I think we need to really persuade Bond Secure to at least try to do 2 or 3 nights a week to 9 o'clock. They're missing an opportunity here, and I think we owe it to our people to give it a try. That was a promise that was made back in 2007.
And there's money to be made in it, I would think.
Yes, yes, we got plenty of folks.
You remember that other guy?
And I will say the level of service there has gotten better on my end. When I go there and have an appointment, it's by the book. But anyway, moving right along, Mr. Norbeck, cemetery signage.
You have a copy of the signs that we've purchased. There was $16,000 in the budget for the purchase of signs. When we received bids back, Allison Payne received the bids back for the original request, which was much more ornate. They had very fancy poles and signs. The price went to $21,000, and so we made a decision to stay within budget. And those signs that you see here are
$5,035.
There you go. And
Black pole. The poles we painted black.
They'll be painted black. Yep. And those should be installed anytime they've been delivered to the town. So we're not as ornate as we were, but we saved $16,000 by not.
Council, what's your pleasure?
I don't care for having to paint the poles, but it's the only option really. I wish it was powder coated or something so that it wouldn't be
That may be an option to get them power coated.
maintenance
There's
to
a
it.
better way to do it, so they don't paint, chip and peel and all that.
Council wish to approve this purchase?
So moved.
Is there a second? Motion's been made and second. Any further discussion?
Ones are falling down in there.
It's under It's under $10,000. Roll call. Don't need a roll call. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Cemetery lot repurchase, we've had some individuals who would like to sell lots back to the town of Blackstone, and we're awaiting Chessie to provide us. I'm leery of taking them back, especially historical ones, because they may have been passed down from generations and that sort of thing. I want to make sure whatever document we have certifies that the people that we're buying them back from truly are the people who own them, and almost like a title search. So I don't mind buying them back, and our town code does say we reserve a right of first refusal, and I think it's been on a handshake deal, and I know that family, and I know this family, but Chessie's going to give us something a little more formalized that's going to say so-and-so is the legal heir or the legal owner, and so she'll be presenting that to us, and we'll bring it back to the next meeting. Cemetery policy, I think we still have some work to do, and we'll be meeting at the chairperson's pleasure as soon as we can to get going on it, wrap it up and finish what we're talking about. We did have several people make presentation at the podium during the committee about what they wanted and what they wanted to see out of that. And there is a grave, sadly, there's a grave space that has not been paid for. There was a 2-grave space that was sold to a family whose child passed away, and we hadn't received payment for it. I'd like to recognize Crenshaw Methodist Church and the Presbyterian Church. They ponied up the money, and between the 2 churches, they paid for the lot where the child was buried. But there's a second lot over there. I've spoken with the father. I haven't heard anything back. I've spoken to the grandmother, I believe. I have not heard anything back. And so I would like to have Chessie take whatever steps are required to either collect the money or transfer the lot back to the town.
$400, was it what, $400 left?
400 is all.
Okay. It's nice of the churches to do that.
So, please be aware that I'm going to be working with Tessie to try to resolve that matter somehow. We'll set up a payment plan.
Absolutely.
Make $10 a month or whatever it is, whatever we can do.
Just to show the
resolve
effort,
it. To this point, we're still.
It's tough, but you got to do it. All right. Madam Chair, anything else from your committee? It's been a busy one. You get the prize so far. All right, you want to move along to Parks and Recreation? This
We don't really have anything to report except for we will be meeting. We're looking at trying to reduce the fees for using the facility outside of local organizations, Gators, YRA, to try to entice more usage of the park.
very good. Sounds great. Moving right along to your consent agenda, this is to use the bus for the wonderful Thanksgiving luncheon on Thanksgiving Day.
Move to approve.
It's the use of the town's bus.
Town
We
bus.
bought one. It's not
Correct.
one of the route buses or DRPT, and Josh is gonna provide drivers, correct?
This is our new bus that we have recently acquired.
New to us,
New to us.
but it's a
So
it's
we
a bus
don't
that
have
was
to
served.
change routes.
It belongs to the town, titled to the town.
Motion's been made and seconded.
I'm sorry, who seconded it?
Ms. Jones. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? What is it? That's usually like, what, 11 to 3, or they haven't set times yet?
9 to 2, I want to say.
It is earlier, okay.
I believe so. I have to double check on that. I'm in contact with the person that's requesting it, so.
Okay. Very good. Moving right along, folks, to unfinished business, the electric service policy. Mr. Norbeck.
Remember last month, we had an individual come and indicate that he didn't know
Scott
about the
Lewis, yeah.
transformers and that sort of thing, so I think there was some confusion. The policy used to say all materials. Now the policy is specific that duplexes for overhead service, duplexes are now included with single-family homes for overhead service at no cost, okay? No cost. Multifamily, hotels, or commercial connections pay for all materials for their connection, including transformers. Okay, so it's very specific now.
Single-family residential and duplexes do not need transformers.
Well, they don't have to pay for them. The
Well, they may
duplex,
need them on the pole, but they don't need pad mount.
they don't typically use a pad mount.
A lot cheaper transformer.
So there was a question about the underground. Underground service for single-family or duplexes is still billable for the material. No labor cost. Everybody pays for underground material. And it's been that way in Blackstone for a long time.
It's cheap still. I mean,
It's still a pretty good deal. But transformers and that sort of thing are not required to be paid for by single-family or duplexes.
Well, let me ask you a dumb question. I say this only because of what happened last week with the storm. I built a new house. I can request that instead of having the line coming to my meter, y'all will go underground.
correct.
How about,
Material.
how about if someone like myself has a line going across and said, you know, I want to change that and go make it underground? Okay.
Pay for the material.
But that would be I would be paying for all the materials.
No labor.
I
all
believe
material.
when I built our new home on 10th Street, it was 700 and some feet. I think I paid like $800.
That's money well spent, buddy.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
it's like
money
$1
because I go right through the trees. So
Yeah, absolutely.